think we are. The importance of roles for sociologists, that's how we become like members of our group. A role is an interrelated set of behaviors attached to a social position. Me, how do we learn any kind of role? Taking the role of the other, imagining ourselves to being them or pretending to be them. Two kinds of others. Concrete other, that's some specific person, real or imaginary. Generalized other, a category. Stages of role development. First stage, imitation. Little, very young child imitates gestures. Play. Child now learns roles but does not understand much of the relationship between roles. And third stage, the stage of games. An older child then understands not merely their own role, but those around them. The institutions or agencies of socialization, overwhelmingly the most important is the family. At adolescence, peers become stronger. Peers become an important institution, particularly at adolescence. The family remains more important through its ability to choose where a child lives. Religion, moral values. Schools and mass media developed only with the Industrial Revolution. Schools that teach us our complicated economic roles, and the mass media, a highly emotive, a highly immersive form of socialization, concerned about the impact of things like video games and television on emotional development. Life course, a series of identifiable stages correlated with age, but it is socially constructed. That life course of baby, child, teenager, young adult, middle age, and elderly, those stages were not all in existence before the Industrial Revolution, one of which fights basic biology, teenager, adolescent. We talked about interactional sociology, the sociology of everyday life, studying the trivia, the little behaviors, the micro behaviors. This is a micro sociology. We talked about the accusation that this stuff is unimportant. Garfinkel's work, breaching, violate the rules to see how important they are. Then, nonverbal communication. We talked about body distance, eye contact, what those things mean. Then sociolinguistics, conversation, acknowledgement, support versus shift. And then finally, Gotham's theory of dramaturgy. The way to understand how interaction works is as if it were a drama. In the book, Presentation of Self in Everyday Life, Goffman develops this approach to interactional sociology by basically saying Shakespeare was right, all the world is a stage. And we have scripts that we follow. We got a front stage, a back stage. Our clothing is really costumes, our homes, our cars, our props for the identity. All that stuff for Goffman is our interaction. So, okay. Any questions on that stuff? That's the review. Yeah, any other questions you want to ask? Remember also, I asked you to read chapters 4, 5, and 13. 4, 5, and 13. At least the first half of chapter 13. Yeah.
Now, Garfinkel, can you just kind of go over that again with breaching?
Sure. A couple of things. First, Harold Garfinkel was the father of a particular approach to interactional sociology called ethnomethodology. Ethnomethodology. Garfinkel was a strong proponent of interactional sociology. He did not believe there was really much in the way of a real macro world. This was just a fiction people made up. It's just an abstraction. It doesn't exist. The only thing that's real are real people. And he said those silly activities of everyday life, the making sense, using the rules, knock on the wall, we know what comes next. Those rules are what life is all about. To demonstrate their importance, he said, violate them. Violate them. If they're unimportant, no one will notice. But if they're significant, if they're incredibly important, things will fall apart because we're no longer obeying the rules that structure our everyday life. That process of violating rules, Garfinkel called breaching. Is that good enough?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Can you ever support and shift?
Sure. Remember, Interactions are interested particularly in talk. This is the area of interactional sociology called sociolinguistics. Someone raises a topic of conversation. This is kind of a microanalysis of power. That is, who has the right to speak next? Who controls the conversation? So, support versus shift. I went to the movies the other day. If a support response is to allow that person to continue to dominate conversation by encouraging them to talk about what they want. I went to the movies the other day. What did you see? Oh, well, I saw this movie. The opposite of that becomes guerrilla warfare. Now you try and take control of the conversation. Someone else has raised a topic, but you don't like it. You want to have the conversation about something you want. So I went to the movies the other day. A shift response where you try and take control. Well, I went to the beach. The surf was awesome. You've now tried to change the topic of conversation to something that you want. Is that good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could you just describe the significance of the Zimbardo experiment?
I'm sorry, sweetie, I can't hear you.
Sorry. Could you explain like the significance of the Zimbardo experiment? Like why?
Sure. Yeah. The Zimbardo experiment is also known as the Stanford Prison Experiment, in which students were selected at random to play one of two roles, prisoner or guard. The experiment was originally designed to last for a couple of weeks. He had to stop it halfway through because it got out of hand. People got into playing the roles. And what scared him wasn't the prisoners. It was the kids playing the role of guards. They became brutal, aggressive, domineering. There was actually risk of physical violence. Mostly it was verbal abuse. It was sexual abuse. That scared them. People got into playing those kinds of roles. We'll talk later on. This also has a connection to some events we saw in Iraq. Zimbardo writes a book following some horrific outcomes in some prisons operated by U.S. military forces in Iraq, in which prisoners were being brutalized and tortured. And for Zimbardo, that sounded like exactly what was happening in the basement of the psychology building in Stanford. Okay, is that good enough? Okay.
We talked a little bit about both the Zimbardo one and the Mead's button pushing. Milgram's button pushing. But we didn't talk a lot about the Ash experiment that you had us look over.
Yeah,
Can you quickly
you
gloss
mentioned the
over
Ash
that again?
experiment in that video.
Yeah, but we didn't really talk about it outside of the video. Can you
Yeah,
gloss
okay.
over it one more time?
The Ash experiment, I'm going to talk about it more in depth probably next time. But I want to be able to deal with other stuff quickly. So let me just do Ash right now, quickly for you. Ash is an experiment in conformity to group pressure. Ash told people there was an experiment going on in visual perception. It was a lie. He put people in groups and asked them to make a series of decisions. What color was greener? What triangle was more rectangular? And then he came to a basically stupid question. Here are three lines and a model. Which line is longer? Or excuse me, which line comes closest? There's a model line, there's three other lines. Which of the model lines comes closest to one of the lines? And people said stupid stuff in the group. Like the short line is the same as a long line. When it's obvious, it was the same as a short line. But everybody in the group, except for one naive subject, said something stupid. They wanted to see if people would go along with what the rest of the group was saying. And about 70% of the people did. Over half. That is, you put people in groups, even when something is stupid, they'll go along with what the group is doing out of social pressure.
All right.
Conformity to group pressure. Okay. Any other questions, review questions for the quiz? What I think I'm going to do is a little bit different today. I am going to let you do the quiz right now. And then as you finish, as you come up, if you want to talk to me about your grade, I'll let you do that. And then by the latter part of the class, I'll put another film on. So just stick around. Once you get done, come back, sit in your seat. Actually, I think I can put the, would it be too disturbing for people to have a film on while you're doing your test?
Depends on the film.
Yeah, okay, it's probably Tuesday. Okay, I won't do it that way then. All right, I'll let you, if you want, you can stick around as you turn your test in. I won't maybe put the film on. And you can then talk to me about your grade. Because I want to give you a chance to maybe go over your grade with you. Some people have already had that, but not everybody. Okay?
What would the film be about?
It is about Belinsky's. It's called Guns, Germs, and Steel. It's showing how worldwide inequality arose with agriculture. Okay, can somebody get the light, please? Because you're going to need the light.